Hello, how are you? So today I'm going to present chapter 1. So, the two textbooks. One of them, the first one. So we'll study about the textbook first. So topic is about multicultural education, history, theory, and evolution. So we'll talk about that topic for that. This course is a part of the early child education courses, but I will include some other components too, because I noticed that some of you are studying about curriculum instruction and elementary education and early child education, really different concentrations. So I try to embrace all. All right, so let's talk about it. I have 28 slides. So hopefully I can complete it within 30 minutes. So, but we'll see. Changing demographics. Language is always changing, as we know. Words have become outdated. Sometimes we need to think about appropriate word selection. For example, like Miss or Mrs. So now we are often use Miss, MS. So to cover them all. So that is about change, I guess. And then, as an example, outdated language can convey negative messages. Sometimes we need to be careful about that. Another example, I'm Asian. I'm Korean, Korean American now. So some people use the term Oriental. I mean, there is some racial term behind historical component though. But Terre Haute, Indiana, we have an Asian grocery store named Oriental Market. So one day I went to the store and then asked the owner about it. So he's from Vietnam, so he thinks that why not? It's okay. I don't feel any racial expression behind about Oriental. So people really seriously consider about it a racial term, but some of them they do not consider. So I noticed it depends. On people from Asian countries. So, and people of color. So we are not using the term Negro, right? So we are not using it. Colored, Oriental, Latinx. So those components. So maybe a good example for that. And educators, we need to use appropriate terms. Definitely, I think that's important. And in the 2010 census, so 15 categories of race were listed. Number one, white. So it's a majority in the United States, I guess. And then black or African American. And American Indian or Alaska Native. Asian Indian. Japanese. Native Hawaiian. Chinese. Korean. Here we go. Guamanian or Chamorro, and then Filipino, Vietnamese, Samoan, other Asian, other Pacific Islander, some other race. So that's the terms we are using nowadays. So you can see. Somebody may say, how about the people from Latin America? Latinos or Latina. So Latinx. So Hispanic, but that's the data coming from. And understanding why race and ethnicity matters. Student populations rapidly changing, actually. So we call it minority group. Nowadays, Hispanic, so Spanish-speaking population growing up, actually. So. And African American or Black Americans also part of the minority. Majority definitely white, right? And then Asian population, small though, but still part of the minority group. Education no longer on one size fits all approach. What do you mean by that? So as a teacher, we need to think about education, utilize different instruction approaches, not just one. So we can apply for this idea to many places, like behavior management as a teacher. We do not need, we need to have different approaches, right? So the same thing about multicultural education component. A need for cultural competence. So that is important. How we can get competence? We need to study about it, like knowledge, and then awareness. So cultural awareness, right? So later we can have confidence. As a teacher, we need to think about many things actually. So introducing different culture, so in the classroom setting, and we think about different approaches for that. Okay, and then the need to close the achievement gap. So we noticed that minority group students dropout rate is very high school, and then we have education issue and literacy. The reading and writing, the ability issue too. So the science of reading is popular nowadays. So research proven teaching approaches, how to teach reading and writing. So for students, that's important nowadays. Teaching must benefit all students. Yes, that's the important term. It's very hard. It's hard to achieve that goal actually. Benefit all students. What do you mean by all students? So all students means from student background from poor, low-income families, or student with special needs. All students. So it's hard to cover all actually, but we can discuss about that. Achievement gap is a big gap actually. So white, some Asians, and comparison about Black and African American and Hispanic group, and then some other Asian groups. So there's a big gap about it. There are rates. Again, I mentioned that it's high. Segregated schools. So somebody believed that that's in history. 1960, civil rights movement in the United States in 1970. And getting better. So I didn't see any segregated schools here. By the way, if you go to South, maybe Florida and Texas, some other southern states, maybe also northern states, in my experience, okay? So maybe I have bias, okay? So when I live in Florida, I think that was 2007 actually. So when I got my first teaching position in private college, then somebody mentioned that, oh, Dr. Park or Mr. Park, when you send your child to school, you need to think about, private school rather than public school, because now public school in Florida not really, fancy. That's what I heard about it, the term fancy. So then, as a faculty member, I had a chance to visit public school system in Florida. I noticed that even classroom, I saw one container, like a metal container style, the rectangular prison box, and then one air conditioner is attached. That was a classroom. I cannot believe it. The many public schools in Florida, I saw many, refugee children from refugee, and also minority groups and Hispanic speaking groups. I saw many white children from Catholic or Christian based private schools. So that's my observation. Maybe change it now, but somebody may say segregated schools still exist based upon economic status, social economic status. Maybe it's right. So that's my experience. So I can say that. And also prejudice and discrimination issues. So bias, prejudice and discrimination. Negative experiences of others. So those components in life, we may face it. So bias, prejudice and discrimination. The situation is, hopefully getting better nowadays, but I don't see it's getting better in my personal opinion. So we need to do many things as educator in the classroom setting for future citizens actually. For example, during the COVID-19, you know, so even local news media pointed out, like I don't know, he's Asian, I guess, the camera aiming at the Asians at the airport. So that when they talk about COVID-19, so focusing Asians. So then one day I would just walk on the street, and then for like a nature walk or street walk, I love to walk in my neighborhood anyway. So then somebody in a golf cart, and then little boys, I think, and then he said, "Do you need the sanitizer?" and spray bottle to me. So so education is important, right? So somebody called me Chinese, but I'm not Chinese, I'm Korean. So look similar. So bias, prejudice, and discrimination. Sometimes it's physically or verbally. There's some issues, big city, right? So Asian hate crime during COVID-19. It's getting better, I hope. So. And negative experience of others too. So that is the my experience about it during the COVID-19. You can think about your own example, right? And poverty and class issues. That's class issues. So social economic status nowadays invisible, and poverty creates an opportunity gap. For example, U.S. Census Bureau defined poverty by the number of people in a household and their combined household income. The National Center for Children in Poverty, that's the issue. They reported that children under 18 years represent 23% of the population, but they comprise 34% of all people in poverty. Among all children, 45% live in low-income families, believe it or not. And even in Terrell, Indiana, some families, they only provide 1 or 2 meals, not 3 meals a day, weekend time. So that's very challenging, so each family. Approximately 1 in every 5 live in poor families. Similarly, among children of aged 6 through 11 years old in the middle childhood, 45% live in low-income families and 22% live in poor families. Being a child in low-income or poor family does not happen by chance. Parental education and employment, race, ethnicity, and other factors are associated with children's experience of economic insecurity. That's a big issue. I mean, based on Maslow theory, maybe you already studied Maslow theory. So, I mean, basic needs and the high needs. Basic needs means something to eat, drink. So those components important for students' well-being, actually. And in my personal experience in Benjamin Franklin Elementary School, then I had after-school programs. I'm going to restart the program this fall. At the time, I created a Korean club, and I wanted to share Korean culture because that's my backbone. I came from South Korea. One day I noticed that they really need snacks. So I got donation, I purchased juice bottle and cookies before teaching Korean language and culture. I mean, after snack, I noticed that some African American or black children, they love to play basketball rather than studying, sitting still and studying Korean language and culture. So I just folded my book, and then we went to indoor gym, and we played basketball. But I added some counting in Korean. So 하나, 둘, 셋, that means 1, 2, 3 in Korean. But when they bounce the basketball, different ways teaching, right? So as a teacher, we think about how to differentiate our instruction in different way. So because physical activity is necessary after school, think about it. Whole day they're sitting in a classroom, chair, and then after school studying about Korean language and culture. That's torturing. That's pretty hard. So I need to rethinking about how to provide Korean culture and language. So at the time, I thought about how to utilize 3D printer. I brought it in school, after school program. We printed out Korean alphabet using plastic filament, actually. So we need to differentiate those components. I know it takes time, so already 10 minutes, so hopefully I can complete it. Poverty and class issues. So Gorski 2013 identified 3 popular yet ineffective strategies to address this. Lower order pedagogy, tracking or ability grouping, charter schools. Actually, charter schools is an issue. So foregoing engaging pedagogical approaches for lower order pedagogies. Specifically, he mentions direct instruction or teaching to the test as being particularly devoid of any engaging qualities and inducing mind-numbed rote memorization drills. Tracking or ability grouping, Gorski cites several examples from the research describing how this practice actually lowers achievement. Opening charter schools, Gorski is particularly harsh on criticism on charter schools, citing data that show how they draw valuable resources from state and district funding to create highly segregated schools, depriving needy students of equal and adequate resources. So that's the issue. So he brought up. And poverty and class issues. Gorski proposed 3 strategies instead. Music, art, and theater, high expectations with lots of support, student-centered instruction rather than teacher-centered instruction. Class activities involving movement. I had the example about playing basketball in the Korean club after school program. So I agree, actually. This is a great strategy, good ideas. So, Gorski outlines what he sees as 8 instructional strategies that work. So, as a teacher, we need to have some good strategies, good ideas, good plans, activities, and lessons. And also, we need to differentiate based upon the student population, right? So that is important. We already knew about it. And my camera is covering the statement here, though. Connect to students' connect to students' lives and experiences. Make connections to the actual lives and experiences of students. Talk about the effects of poverty and biases. Talk about the effects of poverty and inherent bias. And examine teaching content and process. Examine both the content and process of teaching for indicators of bias. So as an educator, we need to also look back. So any bias in our teaching process and then contents. That's important as an educator. Any example as fair is just, so that's a good way we can think about reflective teacher, right? And teach the joy of becoming literate. So that's important. The reading and writing component and also understanding multicultural education. That's important. Oh, the Liberty statue here. Issues on working with immigrants and refugees. That's the issue in the United States. Not only the United States, but also other countries, actually. So immigrants and refugees, that's the issue. We need to define who are immigrants, who are refugees. Definition is also important. We are a nation of immigrants. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. I'm the immigrant from South Korea. I became Korean American. So racial profiling and often require second language instruction. Definitely language barrier. We need to support them. For immigrants, just to immigrate to the United States, right? So language barrier. Support to adapt to a new culture. So how important thing it is. So different, weather, different type of foods, different job, different living environment. So that's they need support. Experience trauma in their homeland. For example, think about the war between Russia and Ukraine. The refugee from Ukraine. It's trauma. So some of them, they lost their family members, right? And the political reason, some people from the country, they decide to come to the United States. Trauma, because of trauma. Immigrants are people who generally move from one country to another country, pursuing better economic opportunities. That's immigrants. My case, I got a job here, the professorship. So refugees travel because of fear of persecution and to escape war and other conflicts. So I gave you another example, right? Ukraine, people from Ukraine, but because of war, they decide to come to the United States. And also the fear of persecution. So that means somebody from Afghanistan, right? So people in Afghanistan, they're supporting U.S. Army, then suddenly, Taliban may be searching for those people and the family. They decide to come to the United States as a refugee status, right? So that's the case. And curriculum instruction and assessment issues. Most literature written by white males. Economic, Eurocentric curriculum. We are using it. New assessments. So we can think about assessment actually. So that's the important thing we can discuss about. Assessment, if teachers are changing curriculum instruction to be more responsible, then they must also assess student learning in a new and different ways. So tests and quizzes and other short answer forms of assessment will not provide a true picture of what each student knows and is able to do. Actually, I attached the short answer and true or false question for this chapter PowerPoint slide to the end. So, but I added discussion question there, right? But for example, sometimes we can assess students in different ways. Different ways. For example, drawing, right? And then cartoon style, so they can make a comic book style. They can draw and then write down keywords, for example. So instead of writing an essay. So there are different ways we can do that. Maybe you heard about UDL, Universal Design for Learning, right? So there are different ways we can differentiate assessments. Maybe assessment, we can talk about, the formal assessment, informal assessment, or authentic assessment. In early childhood education, we are emphasizing authentic assessment. We care about observation, interview, portfolio. So the three musketeers. And also, teacher may utilize different ways, the checklist and the rubrics, KWL chart, right? So different assessment pieces you're using, I guess. So you think about it. Teacher preparation and professional development issues. Unprepared teachers, intense training needed, sensitivity training, no room for quick fixes. So lack of significant preparation in multicultural education may contribute to teachers not recognizing or understanding the educational needs of diverse students. As educators, like you and me, we must analyze critically the practice of teaching and uncover those areas in which we lack the knowledge, awareness, and skill to educate all who enter our classrooms. That's important. Community and the role of parents, that's important. Teacher and parent partnership. Schools must involve the community, yes. Maybe schools set up the field day, right? And then cultural event, cultural festival, for example. So we can invite parents, participate in it. Teaching happens outside the classroom walls. That definitely is true. Think about library. So we in Vigo County, we have Vigo County Public Library. It's great. Now library is a function. It's not only checking out the books and returning the books. Now if you go to Vigo County Public Library, you can see a podcast station and 3D printer station and then video game station and then many areas actually. And so that library function is changing as community, educational community facility, right? For example. And teachers should embrace the opportunity to partner, yes. So open-handed, open-minded. The teacher needs open-minded to ready to work with the community members and then parents. That's important. And moral obligations and responsibilities. Prejudice and discrimination still exist. Actually, I agree. Do you agree? So, and I also have prejudice. So I try to correct myself. Sometimes I have one. Mentally prepared students. So socially competent students. All cultures present in the classroom. All cultures. All cultures. So also we need to consider about our student population. So ethnic groups, linguistically culturally diverse population. So we try to celebrate different cultures, right? So that's important. Recognizing each culture, if you can, that's great. And initial focus on ethnic studies, civil rights protest movement in the 1960s. Evident we did not know much about each other. The last one, ethnics, you know, I'm sorry, the page number is going. Oh, how can I go back? No. Okay. So initial focus on ethnic studies. So attempt to desegregate schools were often met by ugly protests. So, I mean, Brown's Board of Education challenged the legality of American public school segregations. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that segregated schools were unconstitutional. This decision helped pave the way for the creation of ethnic studies. So, ethnic studies is very important. So then we can think about multicultural education too. Influential publications and organizational forces. This is a very important organization. Please click the link and explore. So that is important. National Association for Multicultural Education. If you want to talk about multicultural education, so this website is important. As a teacher, as an educator, if you like to go to conference, you may actually. I noticed that the due deadline is October and September about your proposal. Then you can present, even you can present at the conference. So that's nice. So the website for the National Association for Multicultural Education, the acronym is a name, right? National N, Association A, and for Multicultural M, and Education E, is a name, as a model for organizations discussed in this section. So www.nameors.org. So I'm going to skip it because of the time frame, but you need to explore it, right? So that's important. A new definition of multicultural education. Multicultural education is a model of education that recognizes the significant influence of culture on teaching, learning, and student achievement, and the critical need to address issues of social justice and equity as a part of the complete education. So Howie and Lisi, they mentioned that 2015. So the theory and practice of education, that is multicultural, further seeks to meet the reality of the increasing number of diverse students in the education system. To be current, teachers must be prepared to teach a diversity of students. Definitely, that's important. I mean, in Florida, I noticed that some teacher candidates, from private college, they had a hard time adjust themselves in the public school system as a teacher. So many of them, they quit their job after 3 months. So they think that it's overwhelmed to work with the diverse student groups. Language barrier, because they had refugee children from different countries. Very challenging, isn't it? So that's very, important part. Further, in an increasingly global economy, it is both an economic and political imperative that all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, sex, and sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, class, or other differences, so that's multicultural, be prepared to live and work in multicultural world. All education should be multicultural. So very important. Becoming a multicultural educator. So number 1, awareness. Number 2, knowledge. Number 3, skill. Number 4, lifelong activism, active plan. So we should have. The preparation of educators who are multicultural requires 4 steps. First step, educators must develop awareness of reality of bias, prejudice, and discrimination faced by others, and an acknowledgement of their own biases. Second, educators must have a sound knowledge of other cultures and perspectives. Third, is the need to develop the skills required to teach to diverse learning styles and cultures. And fourth is the need to develop a lifelong personal action plan to increase one's knowledge and skills and dispositions around the diversity, and to develop an institutional action plan to support education that is multicultural. So as a teacher, you have many things to do. So, I mean, it's hard to do, but, you can start with a simple step and then further step-by-step action plan. So not only by yourself, but also work with other teachers, administrators. So you can change based upon student population in your school. So that is important to consider. So what is multicultural education? Addresses the content and process, and engages a commitment to being culturally responsive. How important thing is. Changing pedagogical approach, if you can, as a teacher. Process of expanding the curriculum. Systemic change. That's the last one. It's hard to do, but you can also consider. So we also need to know about the level, this one. So James Banks, he offered a 4-stage model. Number 1, contribution approaches. For example, like me, I like to establish a Korean club, after-school Korean club, and share Korean language and culture, or event, cultural event. You are invited for Korean Culture Festival on September 8th, right? So from 3:30 to 5:30. Level 2, adaptive approach. Number 3, transformation approach. Number 4, social action approach. So your textbook has its definition, right? I don't need to read all definition, hopefully. So you can find out the definition for that and example, okay? So that is important because time goes. Within 30 minutes, I try to, 30 minutes is a long time. 5 approaches to multicultural education. Teaching the culturally different. Human relationship approach. Single group studies. Multicultural education. Social constructionist. So, there are many different approaches. So, I hope they can review those things. Misconceptions. Finally, we're almost done. Misunderstandings. Many common misconceptions and misunderstandings are about multicultural education. Yes, we have. Important to be aware of the fallacies, So, first, the not correct information. So, we need to think about it. For example, the infamous Kalis Indian industrial school houses Apache children torn from their families and forced to give up their culture in order to become more white. A multicultural education teaches that children should learn pride in their culture. That is important. So as a teacher, we need to let them be proud of their language, native language, and their culture. So that's the beauty of diversity, isn't it? So learning from each other, so sharing their culture with each other. So that is important. Race mixing is no. But it's not dynamic if you only focusing on one race, right? So in diverse society, global society, we need to understand different elements. It's much more fun and then good place to live. So this is our, ideal thinking process, I guess. So you have a discussion question actually. So one statement, multicultural educators are socially just and want all America's students to achieve at high levels. For the statement from the textbook above, do you have any idea or one example as an educator, a teacher in your classroom setting? So maybe specific example. So you could think about it. And also, I mean, from textbook mentioned that assessment is limited, but I have true or false or short answer questions. So you can answer those questions. The answer will be located in the last page, okay? Don't turn the page, first solve, and then you can check the answers behind, okay? Let's do that. All right, so I'm done. But you can also add some video clips if you want. You know, now it's about more than 30 minutes, okay? I try to finish within 30 minutes, but you can present your topic within 1 hour, just in case I go over 30 minutes. So if you add some video clip to watch, then maybe definitely it's about an hour to present, okay? So it's up to you. Also, you can utilize the video links from module. I just offer some video links by chapter, so you can also utilize it. Some of them are outdated, so you can try to find it with your keyword about your chapter through youtube.com. You can find the much more vivid current video link, okay? Good luck. Okay, thank you.